We continue with the discussion that could agrarian theology could have done something positive if it was created 2000 years ago. It could have stopped so much of abuse. Of course, there are so many abuses against the natural world. I think church leaders would have tried to stop some of them. Actually, Pope Francis is writing in Laudato Si, in the chapter 3, which is titled Human Roots of Our Ecological Crisis. He writes about new biological technologies. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. It's all very clearly discussed. So far, we didn't have a rationale or a blueprint on which we can reflect on these things. But now it is available. Actually, we need to go for non-violent farming and non-violent eating. Yeah. I mean, the fertilizers, chemical input is a violent farming and a violent eating. If you shift to organic farming, traditional farming, that can become a non-violent farming or non-violent eating. Agrarian theology could have stopped chemical use. It would have appealed people to go and save traditional seeds. Agrarian theology, if it was taught, people would have not sold land irresponsibly. The land is sold to the multinational corporations. The landowner has become landless exile. Agrarian theology would have taught him that land was not a commodity. It was not a property to be sold. In agrarian theology, you would have learned land was an inheritance. It is a gift. It is a heritage. It is a heritage. In Hebrew, it is called nahala. Nahala. Nahala means inheritance. Nobody will sell a gift. If I have given you a gift for Christmas or for your birthday, I think you are going to keep it till you die. You would never think of selling it to someone. No. Because you know it is a gift. So land is a gift from God. So we need to treasure it. It can be passed from this generation to the next generation. That's it. We can't sell it. Only in trust you pass to another person. That's it. So you would have learned land is not a commodity, but it is a community. The 300,000 farmers would have stopped and thought about life and values. Some of them would have not committed suicide at all. Agrarian theology could have given them hope in this kind of tough situations. It could have supported the bottom billion. That is what Pope Francis is calling. The landless farmers, those who engaged in the food production, they are known as the bottom billion. 1 billion people, they are poor and they are engaged in food production in the farms around the world. Yes. For that people's sake, we need to create an agrarian theology. Next. Pope Francis is writing beautifully on agrarian theology. Some of the paragraphs I have identified and I have put them here in the PowerPoint. So I'm going to read them for you. Actually, I'm still giving you the overall view of agrarian theology. I have not entered deep inside. So today, this hour is also we are going to see some of the overall information of agrarian theology. So paragraph number 67 and 164. Pope Francis writes as follows: each community can take from the bounty of the earth. Also, as the duty to protect the earth and to ensure its fruitfulness for coming generations. The earth is the Lord's, Psalm 24. To him belongs the earth with all that is within it, Deuteronomy chapter 10. The interdependence obliges us to think of one world with a common plan. Such a consensus could lead, for example, to planning a sustainable and diversified agriculture, development renewable and less polluting forms of energy, encouraging a more efficient use of energy, promoting a better management of marine and forest resources. That is also included in agrarian theology, marine and forest resources, and ensuring universal access to drinking water. Laudato Si 180. Agriculture in poorer regions can be improved through investment in rural infrastructure, a better organization of local or national markets, systems of irrigation, the development of techniques of sustainable agriculture. New forms of cooperation and community organization can be encouraged in order to defend the interest of small producers and preserve local ecosystems from destruction. So when Pope Francis writes about diversified and sustainable agriculture, this is what he means. Organic farming, which includes vermicompost, green leaf manures, crop rotation farming, biological management, animal husbandry, biofertilizers, manures, etc., which do not harm the soil. Actually, these practices enrich the soil and other parts of agricultural systems. So that's why Pope Francis is writing again and again, diversified and sustainable agriculture. In 2016, we celebrated, that means United Nations International Year of Pulses. That's what we celebrated. Pulses, they are healthy choice because they contain good protein. We are eating meat for protein, which contains bad cholesterol, LDL. But pulses contain good cholesterol, good for the heart, mind, and body. What are the pulses? Pulses include dried beans, dried peas, chickpeas, and lentils. Actually, pulses come under the big category called legumes. Legumes include three parts. The first one is soya beans and groundnuts. You know groundnuts, kadalaka. That is the first part. Second part is the pulses, which include dried beans, dried peas, chickpeas and lentils. The last one contains fresh peas, fresh beans. These are packed with the protein. Not only that, the pulses, when we produce, they don't need chemical input. You don't have to put any fertilizer for the pulses production, because all the pulses are nitrogen fixers. They take nitrogen directly from the atmosphere. In their roots, they have equipped with the nitrogen fixation nodules. When you pull the groundnut plant, you will see, you remove the groundnuts and still you see there are groundnuts. They look like groundnuts. They are not groundnuts, they are nitrogen fixation modules. Highest form of technology, cutting edge technology is placed under the roots by God Himself. Those small chips can trap nitrogen from the atmosphere. The pulses, the legume plants are equipped with that cutting edge technology of fixing nitrogen. They are nitrogen fixers. Other plants, they can't. Rice, wheat, they don't have nitrogen fixation nodules built in their system. That's why they need nitrogen-based fertilizers, all chemical inputs they need. So it is cheaper to grow pulses. And also, the pulses take less water. You don't have to give any water at all. Rainwater is enough. That's why our ancestors, they cultivated pulses between September to January, February. When the dry time comes, also pulses can grow without water. So for our desert environment, in Tamil Nadu, many places we have shortage of water. In those areas, we can recommend pulses. People can grow them. So they take less chemical input, no expenditure, and you get high amount of protein, a great food source for our people. So that's why United Nations International Year of Pulses was recommending to the people around the world to make a healthy choice. Eat pulses and reduce meat. We need to reduce meat consumption. That is not ethical. Eating meat is not ethical at all. When God gave you such a good food like pulses, why should we go for non-vegetarian habits? So I think agrarian theology should study about this kind of agricultural practices and then recommend them to the people to whom we are serving. See, that is the Thovaram Parupu, that is pigeon pea seed, it is known as. Scientific name is Cajanus cajan. Thovaram Parupu. That is also, we call it lentil. That is also, what is that? Pulses. Here you see mochakotte, hyacinth bean or field bean. Also contains lot of protein and nitrogen, which is good for your health. So this kind of stuff our children should learn, especially also Jesuit priests like you, seminarians. You should go for this kind of food. Reduce fish, reduce meat, and try to incorporate a plant-based food. Plant-based food is colorful. Plant-based food is colorful. the previous slide, did you see how colorful it was? See the colors? Oh my God. Colors also you can eat, not by your mouth, by your eyes, heart, consciousness. You can eat them. Yeah, look at the colors. It is known as the plant-based food. It's about colors we are talking about. So now we have come to a place called food security. You know, my title was Agrarian Theology, the golden age of food security. That is the title I gave. So now, what do I mean by food security? So food security has 4 characteristics. One is availability, second one is accessibility, the third one is acceptability, the fourth one is nutrition value. The first, food should be available, enormous amount. It's about the quantity of food, the quantity we produce. So we need to keep excess food for the people. It is known as the buffer stock. Buffer stock. Abdul Kalam was always talking about buffer stock kept in India during the time of emergency or crisis. So we need at least 40% of the food should be kept as a buffer stock in reservation. So availability is the priority in food security. Lot of food we should have. The second is accessibility. Everyone should have access to it. Every person on the planet should have an easy access into the availability of the food. And acceptability, that is very important. I should accept what food I like. It is not that you give some food, I have to accept. No. The acceptance is made on my choice. Yes, if I want to eat something, that is what I want. You can't force me on something which I don't like. The eating habits is simple. What I love, I put in my mouth. That's it. What I love, I put in my mouth. What I don't love, I don't put in my mouth. No. The last one is, what we eat should have nutrition value and poison free. That means genetically modified food doesn't come under food security. Only organic food comes in under food security. So these are the 4 characteristics of food security. So we established this very clearly so that we can go further into our subject. This is George Washington Carver, the example I'm going to give you. He's a Native American from America. He was a man practicing agrarian theology without knowing that he was practicing agrarian theology. Naturally, he was engaging in agrarian theology practices. We will see a lot of activities as we go further into PowerPoint. These are other role models for us, like Masanobu Fukuoka, Japanese organic farmer. He has written many books. And Nammalwar is from Tamil Nadu. Also, he worked for organic farming. Some of the names considered to be pioneers in agricultural revolution: Gandhi, with this concept of village economics, I already discussed when I was in Arudkadal last time. under environmental ethics, Swaraj, Swadeshi, Sarvodaya. They are known as village economics. So Gandhi pushed these village economics into the life of the farmer. And Vinoba Bhave, another Gandhian, the non-violent apostle of non-violence, he started that Bhudan movement or Bhumidan movement. He thought every Indian should have little bit of land to do his own agriculture. So the first premise for agriculture is one should have land. Without land, how can you do agrarian theology? You can't. So every Indian should have a piece of land. He collected millions of acres and then he distributed to the landless Indians. And M.S. Swaminathan, you know very well, he is known as the father of Green Revolution. And Sripad Dabolkar, all these great thinkers. You can ask for quotes. You go to Google search and ask for brainy quotes of Swaminathan. You will get hundreds of quotes. Brainy quotes of Sripad Dabolkar. Brainy quotes from Washington Carver. Brainy quotes Masanobu Fukuoka. You will get hundreds of quotes. That is the fun way of learning agrarian theology. Quotes are the best sources where you gain wisdom and insight. So this is one of the quotes from Masanobu Fukuoka. Please go to the librarian in Arutkadal and ask the librarian to place an order for that book, The One Straw Revolution, Masanobu Fukuoka. That book is very good. I think it will be a very good resource for you. The quote goes as follows. In my opinion, if 100% of the people were farming, it would be ideal. If each person were given 1/4 acre, that is 1/4 acre to a family of 5, that would be more than enough land to support the family for the whole year. If natural farming were practiced, a farmer would also have plenty of time for leisure and social activities within the village community. I think this is the most direct path toward making this country a happy, pleasant land. Here are some of the biblical texts I have identified from the Bible for the use of our efforts in creating agrarian theology. Only few references are there. There are more to come. So God was the first farmer. He teaches how to farm. We should just learn from God Himself. The first professor on agrarian theology is God. He says in Genesis 1:28 to the first humans, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Replenish or replenish the earth. So through agriculture, that is possible. If you do organic farming, you are replenishing. You are enriching the soil. You are enriching the ecosystems. You are taking care of the biodiversity. And you are enhancing the land, which God wanted us to do. Genesis 1:29 recommends vegetarian habits. You eat seeds, nuts, fruits, and vegetables. That is the diet prescribed by the Creator Himself. This is the food you should eat, and this is the food you should produce in your farms. This is plant-based diet, full of colors, full of vitality, full of fiber, protein, calories. What else you want? You want meat? That is your creation. That is human prescription. It is not colorful. It is bleeding. It is violent. It is not pleasing. So I think go for seeds, fruits, nuts, vegetables. Then 2:15, till it and keep it. The most important text for agrarian theology. Till it means use it. Keep it means don't abuse it. Use it, don't abuse it. Keep it for the future generations. So, till it and keep it means do agriculture. That's it. God's mandate is very simple to all the 8 billion people: do agriculture. That's it. That's it. Becoming priests, engineers, doctors, that is human understanding. That is human recommendations. But God never recommended all that. He recommended only one: agriculture. That's it. Till it and keep it. Genesis 2:17. Thou shalt not eat of that tree. Don't exploit the natural resources. So we shouldn't eat which is prohibited. We shouldn't cultivate bad food, chemical food, genetically modified food. Don't exploit them. Please don't tamper with the process of nature. Don't interfere in the flourishing of an ecosystem. Don't tamper, don't interfere. Genesis 2:19, and out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. When you name somebody or something, you enter into communion, in relationship. You become a family. When you call by that name, it is included in kinship and communion. 2:20 we read, and Adam gave names to all cattle and to fowl of the air and to every beast of the field. So that includes everything: animal husbandry, pig farms, chicken farms, cow farms, fisheries, every part of living creatures we bring in to the field of agrarian theology. Agrarian theology. It includes every part of animal and plant. Genesis chapter 2 verse 6 to 9 portrays God as the first farmer. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. The first farmer not only cultivated crops, plants, seeds, nuts, vegetables, he cultivated also humans. The Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed, and out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So these are the activities of the first farmer, that is God Himself, in the Garden of Eden. Pope Francis in Laudato Si, he becomes a farmer. So I call Pope Francis Laudato Si farmer. So he gives an explanation on Genesis 2:15, till it and keep it. In Laudato Si, paragraph number 67. Tilling refers to cultivating, plowing, or working, while keeping means caring, protecting, overseeing, and preserving. This implies a relationship of mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. Each community can take from the bounty of the earth whatever it needs for subsistence, but it also has the duty to protect the earth and to ensure its fruitfulness for coming generations. George Washington Carver, he discovered 32 different kinds of milk from the groundnuts, peanuts alone. 300 different products from the peanuts, and over 100 products from the sweet potato. Later he claims that God taught him everything. One of the most important things that George Washington Carver learned was to hear God speak to him and to teach him how to make products from the peanut. As a result, Carver was able to help the farmers of the southern part of America in ways that no other person has been able to single-handedly do. God has that kind of resources available to each one of us to teach us how to farm better and to help others to farm better. Tell me then, Creator, what the peanut was made for. He was asking to God. Then the great Creator taught me how to take the peanut apart and put it together again. And out of this came all these products which the Creator taught me to make. That is what Carver states. Here is one reference from Isaiah. God is teaching to people how to farm. Very beautiful text. Let me read it for you fast. Listen and hear my voice. Pay attention and hear what I say. When a farmer plows for planting, does he plow continually? Does he keep on breaking up and working the soil? When he has leveled the surface, does he not sow caraway and scatter cumin? Does he not plant wheat in its place, barley in its plot, and spelt in its field? His God instructs him and teaches him the right way. Caraway is not threshed with a sledge, nor is the wheel of a cart rolled over cumin. Caraway is beaten out with a rod and cumin with a stick. Grain must be ground to make bread, so one does not go on threshing it forever. The wheels of a threshing cart may be rolled over it, but one does not use horses to grind grain. All this also comes from the Lord Almighty, whose plan is wonderful, whose wisdom is magnificent. So you read it again when you go, okay? God causes growth ultimately. It is not chemicals cause growth. It is not technology. It is not human effort. It is God who causes growth. I planted, Apollo watered, but God was causing growth. So then neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but God who causes the growth. Now he who plants and he who waters are one, but each will receive his own reward according to his own labor. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 6-8. When the crop failure happens, farmers committed suicide. But if our priest had the knowledge of agrarian theology, had the knowledge of this kind of text, they could have given to the people. They would have understood crop failure is quite normal. I mean, we need not commit suicide for that. Because Bible also telling there is possibility of crop failure. Even God is telling this is the process. Yes, sometimes you have to face crop failure. He dug it all around, removed its stones, and planted it with the choicest vine. And he built a tower in the middle of it, and also hewed out a wine vat in it. Then he expected it to produce good grapes, but it produced only worthless ones. Isaiah 5:2. Crop failure again, Habakkuk chapter 3. Though the fig tree should not blossom, and there be no fruit on the vines, though the olive should fail, and the fields produce no food, though the flock should be cut off from the fold, and there be no cattle in the stalls, yet I will exult in the Lord. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength, and he has made my feet like hinds' feet, and makes me walk on my high places. This text could have saved hundreds of farmers from suicide, from committing suicide. Farmers' faith has advantages. That is what Deuteronomy chapter 11. And if you will indeed obey my commandments that I command you today, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, he will give the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the later rain, that you may gather in your grain and your wine and your oil, and he will give grass in your fields for your livestock, and you shall eat and be full. Okay, now I think we will stop here, because we are not going to finish the whole episode. So we will stop here, and you can go and have some good, very organic tea